Everyday me, everyday God. COVID. Is it an enforced fast? I had a conversation with a wise woman who currently lives in the Australian outback, really outback, like Alice Springs. And during our conversation, she asked, could COVID be an enforced fast? And that was such a teaser to my brain and to my spirit. I thought, could it? Could it? What difference would it make to my or to our COVID experience if it might be an enforced fast? And how does an enforced fast compare to a chosen fast? Well, usually a fast is our choice, our time. We choose a fast when we intentionally give a thing up to gain something else. We give up foods we love. Oh, chocolate croissants, coffee, a long list for health reasons. Our granddaughter chose a technology fast for several days, giving up all kind of technology devices like mobiles, internet, etc., for personal growth through discipline. We give up addictive substances and our addictions to those substances, like alcohol or drugs or some medications, to break the destructive power of the substances that seem to get their claws into us. Or we go on silent retreats or walk the Camino, giving up our social context temporarily for spiritual insight, for understanding, for healing, or for release. So we choose a fast when we intentionally give up a behavior or an attitude as well, so that we can gain something else. We wrestle to give up or to lay down anger and aggression, unforgiveness, bitterness. Or we work at changing an addiction to busyness or to religious involvement or caring for others while neglecting our own selves or our own families. These might actually be harder to give up. These behaviors and attitudes might be harder to give up than substances we use to actually deal with some of those things. So in all these things, we have a choice in giving up for a fast. They have reason, a good reason. It's not fun, it's not easy, but it is for good. And we know it's for good because there's something kind of better that is beyond the present, beyond this plate of food or beyond that, glass of alcohol. What's beyond is a spiritual clarity, a relational renewal, or even survival, becoming a nicer person, a kinder person, a healthier person. So if those are fasts of choice at some level of our decision making, how might an enforced fast differ? Well, an enforced fast involves another person or an institution making decisions for us, decisions that take things away from us, like hanging out with our friends when we want to, going shopping for clothes and food whenever, however, whatever we wanted, visiting and traveling with families, just hopping on a plane for a summer vacation, planning a wedding or an 80th Papa birthday, things we took for granted just months ago. How might we react? Well, often we want to kick the enforcer in the shins, don't we? The enforcer, the medical leadership, the political leadership, the whatever leadership. Sometimes it's God's shins we're looking for. We might rebel without really stepping far enough back to see what might be happening around us beyond our own little world experience, our own personal comfort and independent pleasure. To see that a neighbor, a work colleague really needs an encouraging word. Maybe a bag of groceries delivered, and maybe help figuring out Zoom for somebody. We might react by hunkering down in our own hunker, unwilling to step back far enough to realize that we've actually been created for community. We belong in community, walking alongside one another, walking alongside those who've lost their job, their livelihood because of COVID. They might need a helping hand from us. we might be actually unwilling to sit with God and ask, what's all this about, God? How do we now live in our communities, in our families, in partial or complete shutdown? Much less live and care for our world in a global pandemic. Together as a global community. How do we do that? So if it is an enforced fast, it raises so many questions, good questions, important questions, like, is God making this happen or is God allowing it? I don't know. That language is difficult for me. And you and I have already been where those sorts of questions lead us. And they're important. We've all had those discussions before, and we will continue to have them. But rather than focus on who the enforcer might be, I began to focus on if this might be an enforced fast for all of us, what might the purpose be? Well, maybe there's a purpose for us individually and collectively in our families and communities to actually start engaging with one another again. I know of families that for the first time ever are sharing meals together around a table and talking because their freedom to leave their home has been taken away in forced lockdown. And for most, it's been good. Maybe another purpose is that there's space and kind of energy for all of us to ask, what are the most important things in our lives? For me, for us? Maybe it's about caring for one another, spending time with those we love, sharing more of what we have with one another. I wonder what you're finding is important to you now as some things are being taken away. Because isn't it true that often we understand what's so important when we lose it? And if we're losing something, what is okay to be lost? And what are the things that we grieve that's leaving a hole in us? And it's important to understand and realign what's important. Maybe this COVID pandemic is an invitation to sit, to turn our faces towards God, and in gentle humility have a conversation. Maybe acknowledging that all that we have comes from our Creator God, and perhaps all that we will have going forward is also in the hands of our Creator God. I was out cycling early yesterday morning as the sun was rising. It was rather wet and wild and cloudy, and as I rode over the crest of the highest hill on my route, a partial rainbow had broken through those beautiful early morning violet clouds, rain clouds. It stopped me in my tracks. There was a clear, vibrant spectrum of colors, although a short span. And the rainbow seemed to be affirming hope for our created order in the middle of this pandemic storm. Hope for all that is created, not just us humans, but including us humans, because our world has got some big issues, and we're partially responsible for that. And then it seemed, as I was looking at that little segment of rainbow, it seemed that I heard a question. And the question sounded something like this: Elaine, do you have enough faith to hope? Clever. Not just faith, not just hope, but faith to hope. And I said, rather cautiously, yes, I have enough faith in you, Creator God, to hold hope for my own life, my own little world, and our big world. All of us, all of creation in your hands as you purpose it. I have enough faith to hope that, as with all fasts, something bigger with more insight, more understanding, and even more faith will come from this enforced fast. Amen.